Hi, welcome to the Vocal Cue. My name is Tawny Ballinger, and today I am here with Dr. Jorgelina Orfila, who is an associate professor of modern and contemporary art. Will you tell me how you got into art? What made you want to do art?
Well, I was born in Argentina, and my family was not artistic in any way, and I was really interested in museum studies. And there is this association of museums with art museums that is not all truth. But anyway, at the time, the school where art history was taught was very complicated because of political unrest in my country. But I forged one ahead, and I wanted to be involved in art. So I have a dual degree in museum studies and in art history from my country in Argentina. And I began working in the Museum of Fine Arts of Buenos Aires and curating exhibitions. But my passion was always to do research. So in many ways, the practical aspects of art and how to communicate art with the community was always my interest. But my degree was both in museum studies and art history.
Mm-hmm. So when you were younger, did you go look at a lot of museums just for fun to look at all the art, or?
Yeah, and I can relate with experiences. That's the trick with art. To be in front of the original work of art is an experience you have to learn to have, especially for this generation, the amount of attention, visual attention to a masterpiece. And in Buenos Aires, we have one museum, the Fine Arts Museums of Buenos Aires, that is one of the most important in Latin America. We have a very good collection of Impressionism. We have some Renaissance, art of the Renaissance, some pieces of medieval art, and especially 19th century and contemporary Argentinian art. So that's the art I could see. After that, we have special exhibitions, itinerant exhibitions, and that's where the museum gives you the opportunity to be in touch with original works that don't belong to your collection. So yeah, I took advantage of whatever fate and public relations in my countries gave to me. But that's the trick, and that's my dissertation. We have reproductions and books. And I was always curious because, yes, I read a lot. And for example, the Mona Lisa. Do you know about the Mona Lisa? Have you even seen?
Have I seen a picture of the Mona Lisa?
No, the original.
I don't think so.
Okay, so when you finally are in front of the Mona Lisa or a Monet or a Van Gogh or whatever, you will check your memory and your information about the piece with the original. We are never, in general, with historical art, we are never in front of the objects without already information. And we are in front of the object because of the information and the curiosity. And that's why we go to the Louvre, because we know that the Mona Lisa is there. So I always have this experience of the originals through the mediation of text and reproductions. This is one of the things that I write about. But with contemporary art, or when you are dealing with film of animation, you are in front of the original. Mm. So when we bring with my colleague, Francisco Ortega, when we bring animation here, and when I teach history of the animation, this is the only opportunity I have the opportunity to bring to my students the originals, because they were created to be disseminated through reproductions. The problem began with photography. So yes, I saw a lot of art, but I read a lot of art. And perhaps if you compare me with American students working in New York, where they have the Metropolitan and the MoMA, or a French student in Paris, that they have the Louvre and all those things, I have less opportunity to go and be in front of the original than others. So the breakthrough for me was an exhibition organized by the MoMA, the Whitney Museum, in collaboration with the MoMA, that was contrast of form. It was an itinerant exhibition of modern and contemporary abstract art that came to Buenos Aires. And I finally was in front of a Cubist Picasso, and I was like, oh my, I can talk about this. And this is the first time I am in front of an original Picasso from 1912. Wow. So I was like, okay, I have to think of this. What is art? What is the work of art? So I pride myself of having a perspective that is unique. All perspectives are always unique, but it's a reflection about what is art based on the original, the reproduction, and the text about art that introduce us to the liking of art. Because, especially for problematic art, modern and contemporary art, it's not so natural that you in front of a completely abstract Kandinsky, you are like, whoa, this is great. Kind of, how do we get to abstraction? Why abstraction? Why not representation? And so that's our history. So it became my passion because of the particular circumstances I was in.
That's awesome. Where did you see Picasso, like the original Picasso, for the first time? Where was that?
It was in the Museum of Fine Art. The exhibition was organized by the Whitney, the Guggenheim, and MoMA, and it was Contrast of Forms. I don't remember the year. But after that, I dug in the collection of the Museum of Museum I was working on, and there was a Picasso, 1931. Wow. And there was this Robert Rosenblum, is a specialist. It was a specialist in modern and contemporary art, very famous art historian, NYU, and also art critic. And they came to my country with an exhibition organized by the Chase Manhattan art branch. They have a very important collection. And they came to my country, and I was like, Robert Rosenblum, I want to show you something. And he was like, this is the first work of art where Picasso deals with Marie-Thérèse, and it's 1931. And I said, okay, let's revive the thing, let's put it there. It was considered as secondary Picasso because it was not Cubism from the time of Cubism, but it was a surrealist Cubist Picasso. But it was very important because of the private life of Picasso. If you want to know some gossip about Picasso, you are in front of the person that can tell you about every single marriage and love affair he had in his life. So he is convinced that the museum, the work of art that is in Buenos Aires, is the first Picasso work, the first work where Picasso represents his lover of the time.
Wow!
But he was married, so yeah, the divorce was contentious, so. We have to hide that.
How many museums have you worked at?
I worked at the Museum of Fine Arts Buenos Aires, and there I got the opportunity through a unique scholarship that was the Tarea group, that they have it wasn't a special fund that came with a limited time. It's a foundation that they have to spend all the funds in certain projects, so Tarea doesn't exist anymore. But one of them was to create internships at the Museum of Fine, the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. So I was working at the Museum of Fine Arts in Buenos Aires, and I won the scholarship to come to the National Gallery of Art. Wow. As an intern at the curatorial work in 19th century art, because I have kind of restudied the collection of the fine art museums and discovered certain things that were hidden, and I was taking advantage of my degree to use the latest American scholarship on modernism, and especially impressionist and post-impressionist art. So I came to the National Gallery of Art to work with Dr. Conisby, Philip Conisby, specialized in 18th century and 19th century. So I came to the National Gallery of Art. And there, when I was there, they told me about the Chesterday collection. That is a collection. It's not the most famous or, agreeable trustee of the National Gallery of Art. He was a difficult personality, but he was a collector of Picasso's, Cézanne's, and Monet's. I mean, it's a wonderful collection, and no one had studied it because, again, it was not centered on the important period, the 1870s, or Cubism. He was more a classical taste. So I began to work on that collection, and I saw, hey, Philip Conisby, if you study this collection based on the taste of Impressionism and Post-Impressionism, you are wrong. You have to situate this collection in the 1930s, when Impressionism and Post-Impressionism and Cubism was not the fashion of the day. They were more into the classicism and go back to the roots. So if you understand the collection as created in the Interwar Period, you will notice how important and how contemporary it was. So they invited me to stay another year at the National Gallery of Art. So they repeated the scholarship, and by then they told me, hey, you need the Ph.D. If you want to be, if you want to work at the level you are working, you have to get a Ph.D. So I resigned to my position in the Fine Arts Museum in Buenos Aires, and I began from zero to work in my PhD.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I stay working summers at the archive of the National Gallery of Art with the Chesterday papers, and after that with the papers of a German-American art historian who wrote the first art historical book in Impressionism, John Rewald. And that became the topic of my dissertation, how John Rewald, by taking photographs of the sites where Cézanne had painted, changed the way Cézanne was understood, because everyone was using this crummy, very small photograph to judge works of art they had never seen. And so that's the topic, how the use of reproduction for the study of art changes and shape our understanding of the art as a formal product.
That's pretty cool. So at the archive, what exactly did you do? Did you
the archives?
Yeah. Did you write stuff yourself too? And also,
the archives. I work in the archives. Okay, yeah. That's fascinating. So every single museum has a history. Okay, so there are two kinds of archives. You can have, for example, archives like the National Archives, where you have all kind of information and documents, like the Constitution of the United States. But there are archives at the Louvre that they have, for example, the correspondence with the artist. Can you loan me this? Can you give me this? Sometimes the curators write to the artist, or or the papers of the artist go to the MoMA. Or the Getty. So those are the general archives. The archives of the National Gallery of Art. The National Gallery of Art was created in 1941, the same month that the United States declared war to Japan and the Axis, December 1941, so it's after Pearl Harbor. Okay, so it's the Mellon collection. Andrew Mellon had been the Secretary of State, Secretary of Commerce of the United States, and he gave the collection to the nation. So it's a hybrid museum that belongs to the Smithsonian. So it's the only national museum. All the other museums in the United States are private. Okay. So this is the only one that is federal. The collection belongs to the United States. Okay, so they have the papers of the time of the creation of the museum. But also, this is interesting, the curator of the National Gallery of Art were the monument men. Because, they were the ones going to Germany, to study where the things are. I mean, they didn't look like George Clooney, but anyway. So you have the curators that are federal curators, that they know that they are specialized in the Mellon collection, that is a wonderful collection of art of the Renaissance. And so the papers are important because it's federal. I mean, the first collection, the Pay building, the opening of the building at the mall. This is important. So they have that collection, and they have been accrued. For example, the documents about the creation of the Vietnam Memorial. Well, the director of the museum at the time was part of this committee. So they have been growing with material about the work of art. The National Gallery of Art is the place where if you go to the site, is the Provenance Project about the Nazis, the works of art that was expropriated by the Nazis. So they did research about the collections, to sponge the collections of any single work that could have been part of the looted art. And so they have all those works, and they have papers about their collections, and we are talking about the only Da Vinci in a public collection in the United States, and the works of art that were purchased from Stalin when he was selling the collections of the Hermitage. So we have, and you have all the records of the exhibitions. For example, they organize a huge Cézanne exhibition or a Mondrian exhibition. So all the work is there, the study, and the catalogs of the museum have new knowledge about all the things. So all those records and the photographs are at the archive of the National Gallery of Art. So the place is very interesting because the archives are in the old museum. So when you have to go, I will say, okay, the guards. So how do you get? Well, you are in front of the Botticelli, and you turn to the right, and when you are in front of the Rembrandt, you turn to the left again, and there is a door, knock, and we will open to you. So every single day was going, and then there you have fabulous people, with studying how to archive the material, and archival stuff is, you have to know what to keep, and you have to know what to get rid of.
How do you know what to keep?
I am not the archivist. I am the art historian. But you cannot have repeated things. But it's important to know that the collection came with 15 copies of the same material. So it's important, but you cannot keep 12 because there is a moment that the archive will be the size of the museum. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what's important and what's not important for the future is always it's a whole discipline. To know what will be important in the future, because the archives shape the memory of the future. Okay, so that's my critical theory thing. But anyway, so we know the things about which we have documents about. All the other things were lost, and we don't know about. So the archives shape the memory of the future. And it's interesting too, because we will end up working dealing with digital material and animation, because when I was there, we discovered that we knew more about the exhibitions taking place between 1941 and 1990 than we know about any new exhibition. The moment the curators move to email, if they don't print out an email, it's gone. The information is gone. So we know more about the Vermeer exhibition or the Chesterdale exhibition than all the contemporary exhibitions. Okay, the emails are somewhere.
But how far back?
Yeah, and with what machine?
Whose
because
email?
Because perhaps a curator download everything in a floppy disk.
And
do you know what a floppy disk?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Or an Apple with the USB of the old format.
Wow.
So as we change, the information gets lost and is formatted in a new way. And so, the information is somewhere. And because it is the National Gallery of Art, it should be a mine inside a mountain somewhere with all the secrets of the Pentagon. So the image of the curator should be there, waiting for someone. But I mean, having everything is having nothing. So the information is lost. But the information that is on paper, and you go, but you have paper and you have the onion skin paper, and you see the copies, and you get the different things, and you're like... But sometimes with my art historians, I got to know things about him that I don't think he wanted the people to know. There are two kinds of papers, okay? So you have the papers the art historian is working for the archive, and it's like personal. It's like, oh God, my love affair, no. But when they were there at the apartment of these art historians, that, he had donated the material on Cézanne and Picasso to the National Gallery of Art, suddenly they open a closet, and there are all those papers that had not been classified. And the director of the library of the museum of the National Gallery of Art said, "Oh, we wanted two." So that was the material I was organizing because they have all those things. So the art historian kind of didn't know about those things that were there, but was very interesting because it was the moment John Rewald was one of the first art historians to devote his whole career to modern art. Okay? So art history is the history of art, and it was created as a discipline to study the past. And the past is easy, you see, it's like, it's not personal commitment here. And the history is gone. I mean, it's the war between, England and France. It's like, or Germany and France, or the religious war. I mean, it's kind of easy, but with contemporary art, you are like there. I mean, you have a personal commitment. So Rewald was kind of a hybrid art critic, a friend of the family of the artist, and trained art historian in pre-Hitler Germany. So he moved to Paris from Germany 1 year before Hitler came to power. He couldn't go back to Germany. He was in love with modern art, so began interviewing people who had known Cézanne, and he was able to go and find things, that Cézanne had left, that no one had been curious to search for. So he had this, the French, they had the Impressionists, but they didn't have the distance to know how important they were. But the Germans and the Italians were going to Paris, Lionello Venturi, they were going to Paris to look for information. So he's a transitional art historian. He's trained in the study of the past with curiosity about the recent past. And so he moved from art history, he began to use the camera, he began to do interviews, more in the way of an art critic. And when he comes to the United States, because Hitler sooner or later got to Paris. So when he left, he was in an internment camp. It was a French one, because he was German. But after that, he came in one of the last votes to leave from Marseille, and he came, I think, with Breton and Lévi-Strauss. And here he was an art historian with that material. He wrote in 1942 the first history of Impressionism, published by the Museum of Modern Art. So I was dealing with that material that Rewald hadn't had the time to classify. And I was organizing this material about how during Second World War, he was writing about Impressionism in the United States, with the knowledge he had gotten in German, with the material he had harvested in France. Okay, so that was my work on the archive, was the finding aid. And still today you can go and read, and it's my name. And that's the classification of all the material.
That's really cool. Do you know how far back the dates go in the archives?
Well, I mean, the history of the museum, they go 1941. But after that, they have been dealing with artists, and they have a limited space and interest. So the scope of the material is about the collections they own, and they own collections that go back from the Middle Ages. So the center of the archives of the National Gallery of Art is about the history of the museum, institutional history. And it's something that our dean and our colleges are doing. What is an institution? It's the people, but it's also the memory of what is essential for the institution. So institutional memory is what allows an institution to progress and to add and to change, but to change according to the times, based on a certain idea of what the institution is about. Because if not, you are only fashion. It's like, okay, so where is the academic wind coming? Okay, let's go there. And you forget what the center of your, let's call it, spirit or the soul of the institution is. So archives, or the archives of the National Gallery of Art, keeps this institutional memory. This is how we do things, because this is what we are. And based on that, you change, you adapt to progress, but you keep a certain identity. There is no way to show an identity or to write an identity, something that is, but is ineffable. And, well, that's what we believe memory is. It's like we are the things we remember. Even as an individual, you are the things you remember about yourself. Mm-hmm. Although your family reminds you, but you change. I mean, you don't think like your mother, do you? Okay.
Absolutely not.
Good. Okay, that's okay. Anyway, so that's the idea of identity, or of an institution, or as a human being. It's a thing that change, adapts, but keeps a certain consistency or coherence. At least for you, is consistent and coherent because you feel it. So it's ineffable, but it's important to have it and not to begin anew every time. You have a new director, every time there is a new curator, every time you have a new professor of modern and contemporary art. I changed, and now it's so.
Okay, so how was the transition from moving from Argentina to Texas?
Oh, it was Argentina, Washington, D.C. I spent 12 years in Washington, D.C. working on my dissertation. Two as intern in the curatorial division, and after that were 7 or 8 to get my dissertation. When you write a dissertation in art history, generally, if it is not about American art, you use 2 or 3 different languages. In my case, I was lucky because I was the German, the French, and Italian that was writing together with Rewald, so I had to go to Italian too. Wow. Anyway, so it takes, you have coursework, that is 4 years, and after that 3 years. Writing a dissertation in art history is around 7 years. And after that I worked for 1 year at the Corcoran Museum of Art. It was a museum in Washington that now disappeared, and I got the job offer from Texas Tech. And everyone in DC was like, "You're committing suicide," and I was like, "No, I mean it's great. Let's go have the adventure."
It is an adventure.
Oh yeah, but now one of the things that it has in common: Argentina is famous for the beef and the soccer. Okay, so I am a vegetarian, so to come to the state of the barbecue is kind of similar, Being a vegetarian in Argentina is like being a vegetarian in Texas. It's like, okay, so and here the football you have is not. I mean, you call my football soccer. That is, I tell my students, the real football is soccer anyway. So here you have your Mahomes and I have my Messi. So, sports and food, there is something similar between Argentina and Texas. But I learned, you have to be where you are. and enjoy where you are, all the advantages and the disadvantages. If I compare DC with Buenos Aires, if I compare Paris, to write the dissertation, if you compare and you think what is not there, you are not happy. Mm-hmm. You are where you are, and you see all the advantages of the place where you are. If you spend your day comparing and missing things, yeah, and it's not my style.
You're missing out.
Yeah, no, it's not my style. Wherever I am is where I am. It's like so. Lubbock has its own attractions, and I love the rhythm, and I love the fact that there are not many distractions. My students it's things sometimes in the National Gallery of Art, we were so working and say, it's the last day of the Art Nouveau exhibition. Let's go. So we have been like 3 months with the exhibition upstairs, and we never had time to go there. But to go to the National Gallery of Art took me 1 hour with the traffic at the time. Here I am in 10 minutes. Yeah. Days are longer. You see, so I love the rhythm of being able to do a lot of things. The practical aspects of the work in animation I am engaged now in, it is to go to the high schools and to take the material. And you can do this in Lubbock. In New York, it would be impossible to be teaching and to have workshops in animation. The time is impossible. It would have been impossible, I go home, I put everything in the car, we go to the school, we go back to, our lab or to Dr. Ortega's lab. So in Lubbock, that's possible. We can do a lot of practical things and to study. Our library is just incredible. Interlibrary alone, they bring material from all over the world. So you have the opportunity to concentrate on your work, to do your scholarship, to expand your scholarship. The university is very supportive to us, to work in different fields, and I'm happy. It's like I am in Lubbock.
The library, I didn't know this until about like a couple months ago, but our library has archives.
Oh yeah, they have and you have the Southwest collection.
I've never been in there.
Oh yeah, no, they have wonderful, and one of our the professors at the School of Art, Rick Dingus, was fundamental in organizing this collection of photographs and taking photographs of West Texas before big changes and to look for those queer spaces. Yeah, it is very important. Now one of my colleagues, Dr. Therese Flanagan, they work with the facsimiles of manuscripts they have here. So you have the whole experience of the white gloves and looking with the manuscripts and working with original books from, and even a collection of artist books that also are part of the archives. You have an artist like Picasso working on books. Even though there are 1,000 copies of the book, it's a unique. And those books, they don't go to the general collection, they go to the archive. Because they are unique in a certain way, and they are very expensive too. So they are works of art. Because the artists engage themselves into thinking of what is a book. And when they create the work of art, it was as a book. So it is an original that was reproduced. But the artist knew about that. So it's not the same of a reproduction. If you get a reproduction of a painting, the artist didn't know about the photograph and was not considered in the photograph, especially before 1950s. So they were thinking of the size, the wall, the colors, thinking of a spectator that was in front of the painting. And someone took a reproduction, and that's what you find in a book. But if the same artist is thinking about creating a book, they know they are thinking about your size. They are thinking about the distance. They are thinking of looking at the thing, on a desk. So part of the conception of the work of art is to be in the book format. So when you go to the archive here, or the Southwest collection, and you ask for a artist book, you get the white gloves, but you get experience as the artist wanted it to be.
That's cool.
You engage with the book. So it's very important when you have a library with an archive and they have that kind of work of art.
Can you tell me about the exhibit that you're doing?
Oh, yes. One of the things, when I came here, we have an interdisciplinary Ph.D. program, and one of the classes was a team talk class. And so I pair with Dr. Francisco Ortega, who is a graphic designer and teaches graphic design and is also an animator artist. And we began a project about studying the history and theory of animation. And also we have a practical part that is we study the use of animation as a didactic and therapeutic tool. So we have a practical component that is the animation making workshops. So we have been working together in several projects related with animation, and we are part of the Society of Animation Studies, and we have been around in Spain, in the UK, presenting and studying and presenting master classes. So the idea was to create an exhibition on animation as art. So we teamed or partnered with Dr. Christine Veras, who is an UT Dallas. We had met in different conferences, and she has a lab in animation. And so we have the idea, and we presented the idea of organizing an exhibition of animation as art, a multisensory experience that allows you to see the animation, but also the process animation was created, wow. The objects, and how the animation artists deal with objects and create objects and manipulate objects in time in order to create the animation. We didn't want only the animation, with the screening the animation, that you can see it in your living room, but also the object to show and to remember of the relationship of the digital image with reality. And so because we have been working for 10 years on that, we made a call, international call. We got 60 proposals. We accepted 30 entries, and we will have workshops by international artists and by American artists that will engage the community, children, grown-ups, and school children in different aspects of the animation. And so that's what we are working on, bringing the world to Lubbock, because there are artists from all over the world, from South Africa to Indonesia to Europe, UK, and they send the objects, and also we are screening the animations, so the public will have the opportunity to perceive the objects and the animations. Animation is audiovisual, so animation deals with the word and also sounds and also music, but it's also about the perception of the materiality of the objects. Animation deals with what is an object when it moves, when it changes form. And so we want the public to engage their body, because we also have a collection of pre-cinematic animation objects. It's like animation precedes film, so you have optical toys that you have to move in order to create the movement, and that's the idea that's the genealogy of animation precedes that of cinema. Cinema officially is born in December 1895, when the Lumiere brothers present the camera, and so you have photographs that moves. But before that, you have animators creating celluloid with cartoons, and you have digital toys with people moving them. And contemporary artists are very interested in all that material. You have zoetropes and phenascitoscopes, and contemporary artists, you go to the art fairs, and they are dealing with that, movement that is created with your body, embodied action. And so we have collections of that, and we have contemporary artists, animators, that are dealing with the idea of what is movement and how we perceive movement and how movement is life. Because in general, when you see something moving, it's alive. And animation comes from anima and animus, that since the Greeks is the soul and life. And so we want to engage the public with that mystery of how movement is created in art.
That's really cool. So there's 30 participants?
More than 30, because one of the projects is a project that Dr. Vera's engaged with Belgium, a group of artists that create phenascitoscopes. So it's 30 plus.
Wow. Wow. Y'all definitely need to come check out that
exhibit. Yes, it will be open from March 23rd to the end of June.
Wow.
And be on the lookout, because we will have we have Stephen Woloshin, an artist from Canada that practices cameraless animation. He's actually in France. He will come here to Lubbock, and after that we lose him again. He goes back to Europe, but he will be here giving master classes and teaching the public how to do cameraless animation. And we will have Aldo Murillo from Mexico coming to create, with a table.
A turntable?
The turntable. You put the images, and when it rotates, you have animation. Okay, so with the turntable, and we have a set of different workshops for the public to engage.
Wow.
And what they create in the workshops will be part of the exhibition with the screen. And we will have all the objects. There is a participatory exhibition. Public can interact with some of the objects, and it will be here for 3 months.
That's awesome. Where is it going to be at?
Museum of Texas Tech.
Oh, okay. So that's literally right here.
Yes.
It's not far at all.
But it's easier to park.
It's easier? What did you say?
Parking.
Parking?
Parking is easier than in campus. Free parking in front there.
Parking on campus is very difficult. But I had a great time talking.
Okay,
thank you for telling me about yourself.
It was great to talk to you.
Alright, that's going to be all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.